Welcome back to Creative Culture, a podcast about creative people and culture. Do you own a home? Does it ever need repair? And do you feel like that happens every day? If only there were a resource that combined all three of those. Maybe something like home repairs every day. No, or wait, better yet, everyday home repairs. I think that sounds a lot more appealing, Scott, doesn't it? I mean, home repairs every day sounds like drudgery, but everyday home repairs, it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Something
more approachable.
Right. Scott Dixon is the creator and face of Everyday Home Repairs, a YouTube channel with a name that describes exactly what it delivers, probably better than any other channel. Scott has detailed tutorials on how to fix just about anything in and around the house. Ever wonder how to add an electrical outlet in a wall without access to an attic or a crawl space and not have to rip your whole wall apart? Do you have a crack in your concrete driveway that needs fixing, or a faucet that won't stop dripping? Need to fix a stuck garbage disposal or learn how to install a new one? His channel tackles everything from plumbing and electrical work to carpentry and remodeling, all with an eye on the DIYer. Plus, and this is the important thing, Scott taught me how to play that quintessential tailgate party game and woodworking project, cornhole. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Looking forward to it, man. Yeah, how was your game? How's the cornhole game?
Yeah, that was the only time.
I'm not gonna say where it was at when we
we played a total of, I think, one game. Oh, maybe two. It was. It's a lot like horseshoes. I've always seen people, and in woodworking circles, it's like a really common project to make. It's like an entry level project to make a cornhole game. And then I see it on, tailgate parties. But it's kind of like horseshoes. You try to get it, whereas horseshoes you try for a ringer, and this you try to get it in the hole, but you also kind of get scored by how close you get to it,
And you can knock each other off.
Right.
There's there's a little strategy. But so now you'll at least be comfortable and welcomed at any Big Ten tailgate that you want to frequent. So
I'll bet you anything there's like a professional cornhole league. There's like a league for everything these days.
There's actually video games. There's video games like the
cornhole
Golden
video?
Tee. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think it's called Bags or something. Yeah.
They've got these pro leagues for everything, like dodgeball and pickleball and
tag.
Tag, yeah.
I saw tag.
Tag really looks cool.
Yeah,
This indoor tag where they're jumping.
Tag
over.
looks intense. There's
Seriously.
obstacles and
yeah. Have you seen these slapping contests now? They have in Vegas.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's crazy. It's like, okay, we're going to reduce this down to its most basic level. You're just going to smack somebody in the side of the face. You're just going to box their ears.
Just pure brutality.
Just stand there and take it.
We don't want a lot of movement here.
It's like, I don't know what kind of strategy goes into it. It's like, okay, you take the flat of your hand, you just slap them upside the head. Damn.
Oh my gosh,
those guys come away with their whole head is just.
How do you make a career out of that? I mean, I let once. Okay, can you make it through one slap international meet? But how do you do it?
And these guys are
huge.
A weekend? These guys are like massive Russian dudes. They're like, I'm going to slap you on the side of the head, and just bam, and they just.
And then what? Yeah,
I think you just keep doing it.
Do they have families? How do you wake up the next morning and be like, "Hey guys, cook up some pancakes"? You got a hand well on the side of your face.
But this is the ultimate evolution of combat sports, right? It's like, okay, we're going to just reduce it down to its very basic thing. All you do is stand there and just allow a guy to smack you. And we're gonna make money off of it.
There's even people propping them up.
Oh yeah,
they kind of catch them. Yeah,
it's crazy. They have a coach behind them. What kind of coaching do you need? How to just stand there? You can't do anything.
Right. Don't die. Do not pass out on this one. Okay, thanks, coach.
Let's get into some DIY stuff. What's the dumbest thing? What's the dumbest thing people should try to repair themselves?
Oh man. So electrical and plumbing, right? So
well, I think of electrical because it's just dangerous.
But plumbing, things can go wrong. So I don't know if you've ever seen there's some shorts and different things out there where like a handyman came in. He might have just been hanging a light or doing something, drilled into drywall, and he hit a PEX line, and there's just like a blast of water coming down, and no one knows where the main shutoff's at, So I would say the dumbest thing is if you are doing plumbing or if you're doing electrical and you don't know where the electrical panel is, how to shut off power to your house, or on your plumbing, if you don't know where your main shutoff is at and that it is working, I probably wouldn't dive too deep into those areas because things can go wrong in a hurry. I do some rental properties. So I had a tenant call me and I was at my corporate job and he says, man, I just arrived home. There's water. There's a lot of water everywhere. I'm like, okay, what area of the apartment? He's like, no, like everywhere. I'm like, okay. And it was on a concrete slab. I'm like, how much water? It's like 3 or 4 inches everywhere. I'm like, what is going on here? So I'm like, do you hear water running? He's like, yeah, it sounds like there's water running. Okay, can you help me like track that down? And what had happened is CPVC, main water coming in with CPVC, it broke off, and then it was just like a jet of water blasting a hole in the drywall and just going everywhere. So I was walking him through the main water shutoff.
That's like water damage is the worst thing that can happen to a house too. I've had people tell me you should probably don't even want to report that to the insurance because it's gonna ruin your valuation and everything.
Yeah, in my area. Some pumps. So in my area, we have, basements or crawl spaces. The water table is real high. So if we get a good storm and your sump pump fails, I mean, after that big storm, you go driving around and there's people with a bunch of carpet in their driveway where they pull the carpet out of the basement. And that is a very common thing. So also something you should not ignore is your sump pump. You want that in operating condition, especially if you need it.
I have a question about that because I have here in my shop, and I've lived in this house.
Is this just going to be a session for your? It's
going to be just me asking you all the things that are wrong with my house.
Okay. We'll just move the camera around. We'll just
do that. So I've lived in this place for over 20 years, and ever since I moved here, right behind me on the floor of my shop, it floods when we get a lot of rain, and it has to be a lot of rain for several days, and then it'll flood. And I have tried everything. I've sealed the outside. Is it possible for the water? Does it just like seep through the concrete? And it's like I've learned to live with it. I'm at peace with it because it just kind of collects in this like half of my shop, and I'm cool as long as I don't have anything sitting on the floor. It'll just eventually, as soon as the rain stops, it just disappears. But is that something that's even worth? I've asked plumbers.
Have you went outside? Have you?
Yeah.
You got to catch it in the act, right?
I've looked and I cannot figure out where it's coming from. There's just no.
Do you have gutters?
Yeah.
Do you have gutters? And okay, because some places don't, right? So it just dumps it right on the foundation. So if the gutters are doing their job, now is there a driveway or sidewalk or anything with negative slope back to your foundation that's kind of bringing some of that surface?
Probably.
So so if there's any kind of slope that kind of bring that, water back, then that's classic. So sometimes people put they'll do a trough, trough in the concrete itself. And then that will have, some corrugated pipe or PVC that would take it to another location.
Well, I'm just going to keep living with it.
It's a pain. Downspouts are classic, downspouts, gutters being full. That's just such a classic homeowner maintenance item that kind of gets overlooked. And then that will cause, more issues.
So when I was asking about dumb things for people to try themselves and that, what makes for a good DIY project?
I think most of them are actually approachable, right? So a classic case would be getting water in your kitchen sink cabinet base, right? So that's somewhat intimidating. Where's the water coming from? But if you take all the stuff out and you start trying to trace it down and you see the drip here, but then it's actually coming from another location. And 50% of the time, that's just a small loose nut on the P-trap, right? So just even taking the time, and especially when it's not a real emergency like that, just taking your time, going to YouTube, right? Kind of getting some information. Most people with extremely limited amount of tools can solve that problem, opposed to, trying to call 5 plumbers and getting one of them to call you back and get them out to the house. So I think usually when people get started in DIY, it just snowballs, right? Because then wow, this is a little bit easier than I thought. And then they get more confidence and they might get a little more tools. And then it kind of builds up from there. So I like most projects. I do think electrical and plumbing are a little more intimidating than others, and probably rightfully so. But even those, can be approachable.
You have a lot of electrical projects on your channel. I would say you probably have more electrical projects than anything else. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah,
that's correct. I'd say, YouTube's kind of given me the sub niche of electrical in terms of that's where I can get a little bit more of the writing the algorithm, getting the views type of thing. So yeah, we've done a lot of different outlets, a lot of different light switches, a lot of different installing different fixtures, troubleshooting things, sub panels, main electrical panel. So we've done quite a bit.
You do some heavy duty stuff. That's a scary niche to get into on YouTube, electrical stuff, man, because if you're not doing it right, more than any other kind of DIY area, people will just descend upon you about how you are doing it wrong.
Yeah. I think at the start when I was getting into that, there's, all sorts of comments coming in. And to be honest, no one's learned more from the comments than me. I take most of it in. I adjust, where needed, and try to bring that knowledge into the next video. So I try to be clear with people, I'm just showing you my experience. Don't take these things on unless you know electrical code in your area. You can do it safely. You have the equipment. And I think I've actually polled the audience, 62%, this is actually a recent poll, are usually going to hire it out. They're just trying to build their own knowledge of what is involved with getting a sub panel in my house, because I'm going to get an electric car. I have no space in the panel. I need to charge this thing at home. What does that entail? Is this a massive project? Is it approachable? So they're really just watching those videos to educate themselves, which I think is extremely smart. So you don't necessarily have to be a DIYer taking that on, but being an educated consumer can also save you a ton of money and headache down the road as you're working with that professional and trying to get the end product you want.
So will that help you out? Just knowing how a project is done, help you out in choosing, say, an electrician, and what kind of questions would you ask to test them? I know what I'm talking about. And how do you avoid coming off as the DIYer know-it-all?
Ooh, tricky. Yeah, that one's a little tricky.
Because don't professionals, doesn't that kind of bug them when a DIYer kind of does some, well, actually, I saw it on YouTube. I
think the medical industry is similar to that, right? I Googled and I'm pretty sure I have this rare form of fungus from what's going on? I think like anything, it's how you communicate it, right? And you're not coaching the professional, you're collaborating with a professional. It's not always going to hit the mark, but to be honest, a lot of professionals don't necessarily want to come in and the homeowner's you tell me what to do. Well, ma'am, this is a full house remodel. It's I don't really have a clue what I want, but just go ahead and remodel that thing. So some professionals actually like that you have some idea of what you're looking for, right? I want 20 more spots in this panel that will fit what I need for the next, 5 years. Or do you want a full panel with 30 or 40 slots? What are you looking for? Because there are options out there. And those guys, honestly don't usually love presenting 5 different options, sitting down with you, spending all that time, right? They kind of want to get in and out. Yeah. So I think if you approach it correctly, some of the professionals, that will be a welcome, change for them.
Right. Yeah. I had to hire an electrician recently we had a fuse box in our house. Have you ever had to replace a fuse box? It was like ancient, you know?
I have a rental property with, each side has the duplex has fuse, and they've never blown. I've owned it for 8 years. I've never blown a fuse.
Wow. Well, see, the problem we have with this place is it was built in 1955, and over the years, so much electrical work has been done and changed and everything that it's just a mess of wires. And like up in the attic, they're like crossing every which way, and there'll be lights in one room that are on the same circuit as lights in the other end of the house. You know, it makes no sense. But I was real happy to have an electrician come in and just do that work, because to me that seems like an overwhelming idea, is to replace a circuit breaker box. You know, it's like, no way am I going to do that.
Well, if you have the older homes, and especially recently, right, the real estate market was so competitive. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, well, our offer is this, and we'll waive all inspections. So they're buying these, what could be 1910, 1920, 1930 homes with zero inspection and zero knowledge of, any of these systems.
That's just like the horrible idea, to buy a house without getting an inspection.
Yeah, like horrible. Really, really bad. So for us, we still have some knob and tube wiring in our area, which is kind of the original electrical wiring in residential. And a lot of guys will go through an update where they'll give you a circuit, they'll get you a panel, right? So you have circuit breakers. So they'll modernize that. They'll take Romex out to electrical junction boxes, usually in your basement. But then they'll use all the old wiring going through the wall. So you kind of have like this hybrid system at that point. It's like, So that's classic. So that, is
that dangerous to have those old wires? Like they're like fiberglass covered or something. I don't know what the covering is on those.
I don't love that. Like when we redo a house, we do some flipping and stuff on the side. I take it all the way. I take Romex all the way, new boxes, just new everything.
Rewire the whole house.
Yeah, but it's a lot of labor, especially if you have plaster walls. Oh man, it is a mess. So that is why that's the classic case. Yeah. So that is the classic case of a homeowner. You call an electrician, say you want to update your electrical, you want a circuit breaker panel, you want modern, basically a modern system. They might actually install this hybrid system, right? And that is what they communicated to you, but you didn't even know that was like even an option. So you get all done, and then you're kind of like, man, everything doesn't seem like it's all new, right? So that's just the classic case of like educating yourself to make sure you're getting, what you want, because it's kind of the path of least resistance. So the professional is going to kind of be like, yeah, we'll get you updated. And I've had professionals do that exact job.
But is it safe to still have those old wires running through my attic? Or is it going to cause an electrical fire potentially?
If you have
You're hesitating like,
sheathing,
it will. It's going to blow your house
up.
up.
No, if you have frayed sheathing, you have an exposed hot, there's arcing, can a new Romex compared to old, where maybe there's something contacting it, I would prefer to have new on there. And maybe some rhyme or reason to the routing of that, where it keeps it, So Romex, like the yellow Romex for 12 gauge or white Romex for 14 gauge, like that's supposed to be protected. So even in the attic, like you shouldn't be laying things or stacking things or stepping on, right? That's a pretty thin layer to protect those wires inside. So it's not really supposed to be ever exposed to abuse. That's why in a basement, you're actually supposed to like drill out the joist, right? And run it, not on the bottom of the joist, but through. So, but yeah, electrical can be definitely intimidating, confusing is also for homeowners. Is
there a rule of thumb how people should decide whether to tackle a project themselves versus hire a pro?
I'm a little bit on the curious side, right? So I just like to try things out, get into it a little bit, but also know your limits. If you're dangling on a ladder, you haven't, if you're 2 stories up on a ladder, you haven't went for a run in 8 years, done anything physical, and like, you're
going to die.
Let's make sure,
You're just going to die.
Let's make sure we're like, Or you see those where it's like a bucket truck to scaffolding to ladder.
This is no shit. The other day I saw this. There was a guy trimming a palm tree, and he had this extension ladder, and it was standing on top of like this concrete pillar post thing as part of a fence. I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't look right to me.
No. So those type of situations, if you're not confident in electrical, what is hot, what is neutral, what is ground, what's code, you should be. Can you swap out an outlet or a light switch? Yeah, probably, if you feel comfortable with that. Should you be rewiring? Should you be adding new circuits? That's where you're going to get a little bit more where you want to have some experience or start to build that experience before you take on larger projects. Yeah,
I would say replacing a switch or an outlet or adding a light fixture should be something that every homeowner should be able to tackle pretty easily. As long as you can shut off the power, you know how to test the power isn't on, I think you're probably good to go.
Yeah. And just noticing things. I think for most homeowners, it's just when you're around your house, are you noticing things when they start to deteriorate, your downspouts are falling up? Are you noticing those things and addressing them? Because the list gets long pretty quick if you don't stay on top of it, right? Not everybody should be a homeowner.
Well, that's true. That's the biggest biggest surprise when you buy your first house is all of a sudden you kind of get overwhelmed.
Yeah, who do you call? Who do you when stuff breaks? Do I call the landlord? It's like, no.
It's getting harder and harder to find people to call too. So it definitely helps to take on some of this stuff.
How is it in your area? How is it for plumbers, electricians? Is it pretty tough?
Yeah, it's luckily we've been working with the same electrician who has kind of a small business. And then the plumber, we have sort of like this mid-level chain, I guess. Ben Franklin, I don't know if you have that out where you are.
Oh, okay.
But
no, we don't. Yeah.
So I do this they have like a membership club or something that gives you like faster access for it. Because here's the thing is, I used to do the plumbing repairs myself, or I would try to, replace a sink or whatever. And then it just got to where I just don't have time to deal with it when I know somebody who does this stuff day in and day out is going to be able to get in, get out, and it's not going to be leaking. For me, just to, replace some of the plumbing or install a new faucet is going to be like an all-day job for me.
It's like a 3-trip to Home Depot because you got the wrong size line.
And it's still going to leak, and I'm going to be so frustrated. I'm like, I could be spending my time in my shop making money. I could be doing stuff other than this.
Right.
So,
get out of video,
my DIY around the house is becoming more and more limited, I guess. There's certain things that, I'll take on as far as an emergency. But as far as your question, though, it is getting harder and harder to find pros. I was talking to Ethan about this. I think we were both talking to him.
Oh, yeah. I know he's done multiple series, right?
Yeah.
As Carpenter on skilled trades and what's going on.
It's just going to get worse and worse. People aren't going into these things. Yeah. So DIY, man. It's a time to kind of learn.
So the way in the DIY, obviously I'm a big fan of, but also if you're looking for a professional, a few things that I've done in the past. One, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's right when they open. So depending on your area, 6:37. If you see a professional there getting their supplies, hustling and getting the job by 8 a.m., that might mean they're looking for work, they're hustling, they might be something that you would want to work on your own home. Google reviews are very good. So Google reviews, but I don't look for the 500 reviews and 4.9 stars. I look more for 30, 10, 20, 30 reviews. So they're getting started. And then I search recency, right? Are those reviews recent? And then I'm also looking for comments. I'm not just looking for blank 5-star reviews. I'm looking that they actually said something, because that's a little bit more indicative that was actually a homeowner that was actually excited and happy with their performance, not their aunt, uncle, cousin, neighbor, that's just putting the 5-star reviews in. And then on the reverse, I'm in a college town, so I'll drive around campus Friday at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. And if I see a plumber there, especially if he's just like a 1 or 2 man band, or electrician still working, still hustling, maybe I see them on Saturday, I'll stop by and talk to them, because that again kind of indicates to me maybe they're looking for work and they're hustlers, and they would be willing to get after it. Those all have worked for me in the past, finding plumbers and electricians for my rental properties and some of the other stuff we got going on.
Just Googling plumbers or electricians or whatever, you call them up or try to contact them. They're like, well, we can squeeze you in 5 months from now or something, And if you have an emergency, it can be really, really hard.
You can go after the bigger companies in your area. Those are going to be the, hundreds of reviews. Just understand you are going to pay for that. So they probably have a pretty good scheduling system. They probably have people answering the phone 24/7. They probably will get out to your house and not ghost you, and you can't get them to ever come out. But like in my area, electrician, instead of billing out at like $80 an hour, they might be $140 an hour. So you're gonna pay a bit of a premium, because they gotta justify all those systems and trucks and overhead and everything that they got going on.
Do you have a line personally that you'll draw as far as DIY projects you won't tackle?
Personally, not too much.
You'll just tell you anything.
Yeah, we've done some, and we're in rural area too. So I mean, there's towns where you might be fixing a house and there is no permits to pull. There's no permitting department, right? There's that structure is not in existence. So in those cases, not that we're trying to do anything shortcut, but we did a 2-story farmhouse, 2,400 square foot, pretty good sized house. And like one of the 2 main structural beams going through the crawl space was just absolutely destroyed by termites. And it's a classic case. The homeowner hired, quote unquote, the pros to come in, and they did, they tried to like sandwich the damaged wood with new wood to make it look better. But no, we had to basically like temporary support structure the entire portion of the house, take out the old beam, get new 2x12s in there to construct a new beam, and then put all the support structure underneath it. So those can be, multi-week. And I have help with that. That's not me, one man band there. So we'll have some extra hands for sure.
So you mentioned you're flipping homes also. Do you do a lot of that? And I guess what I'm interested in this whole home flipping thing, because it seems to become a big thing now, especially on YouTube. There's a lot of people really promoting this, and a lot of it sounds really, honestly, it seems like really scammy to me. Like they're promoting, hey, you can learn how to flip houses, and all you got to do is this. And I just wonder kind of, what are the ethics involved in home flipping, and especially as it kind of relates to kind of changing the look of a neighborhood, gentrification, all this stuff. Sometimes these people are coming in there and just kind of doing a quick facelift on these houses and then just turning it around, and all of a sudden the value is, $100,000 more than it was.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was from just recent real estate market, right? Yeah. So everything was just running up so hot and heavy for the last, especially since COVID. So for the last 3 years, that if you could get a house for a reasonable price and put new paint on it, then you can just like throw it back on the market for $100,000 more. So what we do is, mine's more like rental property. So if I'm going to flip a house, I might just hold that as a single family or a duplex that I'm going to have in like a small rental portfolio. Some of those I would resell, but I'm on the other end. Like to a fault, probably want to make things as good as possible, where like I'm not really going to get paid back, because this might be a small town flip, right? So it's a somewhat limited buyer pool. But those like weekend seminars, so some of the stuff you were talking about, like the weekend seminars, no experience, no money, a partial heartbeat, and you can get in here.
Yeah, how to make a fortune flipping homes. Yeah, and you see it. There's
right, but you see it on YouTube too.
You see They're it on YouTube all over the place.
I'm going to show you how to make 7 figures without creating any content, no videos, no value creation in this world.
Oh God, yeah.
And we'll get. It's like, come on, man. Like, what is going on?
The YouTube guru syndrome. Yeah, I guess it applies in every field. There's the people who make money telling you how to make money.
So most of that not all of them, but most of the real estate like weekend thing it's like a 3 or 4 step feeder. So the free weekend course is actually to sell you on the $1,800 next weekend.
That's where they
course.
trap you in and they won't let you leave. You know, they give you donuts and stuff.
Yeah, back of the room, we got the credit card machine spooled up. I mean, we laugh, but that's like exactly how it goes. So I have a friend that he went through that, and he actually did right out of college, got into real estate. He's doing great. But there's many other examples of that not working out so well. What I usually say, if you want to get in real estate investing, you know, what's your kind of unfair advantage, or what are you bringing to the table, right? So one thing could be, I have a lot of capital to deploy, right? I have a lot of cash in my account. I want to go ahead and buy some assets to kind of fight inflation. Okay, that's reasonable. 2 could be, I'm a plumber, electrician, a carpenter by trade. So I just have these skill sets. I have the tools. I'm ready to go. I know where to get the supplies. Okay, that is also a valid thing. Or 3, maybe, I actually have this source of deals that aren't on the market. So they're actually underpriced. People want to sell them right now, but you can kind of get them 70 cents on the dollar, you know, or 60 cents on the dollar. Okay, that's also valid. But like if you can't point to like, you know, do you know anything about home repair? No, not really. Okay, how much do you have saved up to deploy? Oh no, I have a lot of credit card debt. I don't have any funds. Okay, where are you going to buy? I was hoping you could tell me that. You know, like if you can't like point to any strategic advantage that you have, I don't know. I think it's an uphill climb. You know, I wish you the best, but you probably should have some skill set or something that you're either bringing to the table or willing to learn. Maybe you're just a hustler.
Yeah.
Maybe you're willing to put in an incredible amount of work. You're going to do a ton of things wrong, but you're just, you know, no family, no whatever. It's just you and you want to hustle. That is time. Time is obviously valuable. If you got a ton of time to apply to something, you might be able to find somebody that can kind of help you through and navigate that whole process.
I would think you would have to, especially if you're just into flipping homes for a profit, you've got to have a lot to really make that profitable. Because if you're going to spend 4 or 5 months refurbishing a home that you're only going to be making, you know, 50 grand profit off of, it's probably not worth it. So you're going to have several going at the same time, and that involves hiring a lot of people, and then you're just becoming a property developer.
Yeah, and what's super surprising a lot of people is if you wanted to just flip homes, like that was your main source of income, you would need, you know, usually, not always, but usually 2 or 3 projects in some form. Like one we're closing on next week, the other one we're 2 weeks away from being finished, and then we have one in the hopper where the crew's going to go over there for the next project. Well, you're going to be surprised on how much money you need to make all that happen. Yeah. I mean, even if you're buying at $100,000 and reselling at like $300,000, all of a sudden you have $750,000 deployed in some form throughout those 3 properties. It adds up. It goes out fast, right? Yeah. The going to Home Depot, paying for labor, you know, acquiring properties. It goes out very fast, and then hopefully you get a large check when you sell it. But yeah, I would not do flipping full time.
That's why the money is in teaching other people how to sell houses.
Right. You guys, and then once you figure it out, let us know.
Right. It's true with everything, man. The people making money are the people just trying to show you how you can make the money, you know. So you do some Airbnbs too, huh?
Yeah, I have some standard short-term rentals, which are the Airbnbs, the VRBOs, bookings.com. But I also do midterm, which would be like traveling nurses. Again, I'm in a college town, so maybe some traveling scholar that's here for 3 months. But I'm getting out of all that. So I'm
really?
Actually, like this year, 2023, I have 5 properties, 10 doors. Those have been topics of the channel of everyday home repairs, you know, fixing a bifold door or a toilet paper holder that's falling off the wall, you know, things that we've captured over the years. But all those will go this year. And then I'm focusing on YouTube. So really, focusing on that, our website, YouTube, Facebook, all the different channels. And then I'm also like investing with others. Mm-hmm. So where others do the work, and then we are in like an LLC together. and then I just deploy the capital, and I'm in a pretty passive position where like day to day I'm not doing anything. So I'm really cranking that up. So this year will be a little bit of a transition, and I'll always have a house or a condo, that's just sitting there. There's no time frame on it. It needs updating. And then that's some of the content, my own personal home, and then this like project house, but there's no schedule.
Once you get your house all fixed up, there ain't no more DIY projects to show on YouTube, huh?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Yeah, you'd be surprised. Somehow there's still a lot of projects are still there, but yeah, there's some to that.
I find it interesting that I think, I'm not mistaken, Airbnb is a San Francisco company, and in San Francisco, Airbnbs are not allowed.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. And I think this is also sort of the ethics of short-term rentals, is that San Francisco is a small town. I mean, it's a lot of people, but it's a very small, limited space. And if all of these short-term rentals start popping up, there's no place for residents to actually live anymore. And so they're like, no, we can't do this.
There's some to them. Yeah. San Diego did something similar.
You have to live in the property if you're going to do Airbnb for like 3/4 of the year, and you have to rent them out for a minimum of 30 days. You can't just do 2 days at a time. And I think that probably in larger areas, you're going to start to see more and more of that.
Yeah, some towns have, I forget what it's called. It's like the Masters rule or Augusta rule, and its precedent is the Masters, is the golfing tournament in Augusta, Georgia, where they had a law where you could rent out your residence probably on the course for a certain number of days. It can't be a full-time rental, it can't be a short-term rental, but there was a certain number of days that you could rent that out, basically to capitalize on the craziness of the Masters and everybody coming to town. So I think other municipalities have like accepted that rule where, no more than 30 days. So in that case, there's going to be no one operating a full-time Airbnb, right? You can't like buy a condo and only rent it for 30 days.
Right.
It can be a good business, but it's not that good of a business.
Yeah. You have to make the distinction between, do you want to run a hotel or a
and it is, I want to be clear. It is straight up hospitality.
Yeah.
Like, I just had a guest and she was very chatty. She a lot of, we were talking about pillows and hair dryers, and that her new dietary restrictions. So we were trying to find her places to eat. And yeah, so I mean,
people love these things. I am not personally a fan of traveling that way. I really want to just have a nice hotel and go out to eat, and I don't want to have a kitchen and cook my own food. But I guess if you're on a budget or something, and you really want to just see.
I've been leveraging it lately. Like in Vegas, the last time I went to Vegas, there was a little Airbnb for the Builder Show. So I stayed in a little Airbnb opposed to like one of the monster hotels. Right. It worked out pretty good, but yeah, I had to wait, an hour and a half for the host to get me the keys and stuff. So it's not always as smooth as expected.
Do you have any thoughts on these smart homes? Is that something that you use in a lot of your buildings? Just trying to get everything smart appliance. I think the silliest thing to me is some of it's getting a little bit crazy. Like I saw a smart faucet you can buy where it's like voice activated and Wi-Fi activated faucet.
Speakers, light setting.
Fill up a pot of water for spaghetti or something like that. Well, don't you still have to put the pot there?
There's definitely some stretching going on from like Delta, Moem, Kohler,
Yeah.
All right, Bluetooth connectivity. And how many speakers do you have in it?
Yeah.
Like, for the faucet? Like, what?
We just had our kitchen remodeled, and we have a Wi-Fi oven now. I've never used it. I have no reason to. It just seems silly to me. I don't know.
Right. So there's a lot of that going on where it's just like bells and whistles, but would you ever use it?
Yeah.
I will say we have a Delta kitchen faucet that's touch, right? So you just wave your hand and it turns on. I use that all the time.
Yeah,
like
those are pretty
all the
nice.
time.
Yeah.
So if I go back to my parents, I actually have to use a handle. I'm like, what is this?
You caveman.
These dark ages you're living in.
Yeah.
So, but I use like August door locks, so you can swap out your deadbolt latch for this small barrel that rotates. So I use those on Airbnbs. Those are nice. Nest thermostats, right? I have Nest on all my different thermostats. So that does help. Now, what I will say is that is creating an entirely new industry of handyman, right? So at my Airbnb, I have, mesh Wi-Fi. I have these August door locks. I have Nest thermostats. I don't have any cameras, but that would be totally reasonable at these places.
Yeah, I've heard about some like hidden cameras people are putting in these.
Oh yeah, Airbnbs. Not hidden. Yeah, these are more exterior cameras. But yes. Right. But if you think about it, those go out. The Wi-Fi goes down. One mesh pod goes out. The batteries are draining down on the August door lock faster than you expected. Well, that's not necessarily a normal handyman.
Right.
That's a little bit more of like Best Buy Geek Squad
troubleshooting. Like, have you tried turning it on and off?
Yeah,
right. Clear your cache.
That's kind of this whole new, because my main handyman that I would leverage, like he's not gonna do that stuff.
Yeah,
he's not gonna troubleshoot the Wi-Fi network. So I do like the smart home things to an extent. Like I have a UFi video doorbell that's just actually battery operated. Because we did not have the small 5 volts or whatever you need for a normal powering of a video doorbell, and that's worked great.
Yeah,
awesome. It lets me know when the Amazon guys show up, and I think those things are great, especially at your own home. When you start peppering those all over rental properties and such, that's where it gets a little complex, because things will go out, and like I said, who are you calling? For that.
Yeah, it gets frustrating when those things go out too. I've never had a need to walk into a room and say like, turn on the lights or whatever. I mean, switches have been around for over 100 years. It's a pretty simple thing. I think that sometimes it's overcomplicating these things.
It's usually like a curve, right? So I think we went to peak.
Yeah, I think so. We're coming back to reality a little bit. We're like, oh, okay, some of this stuff makes sense.
Oh, yeah, like the fridges. Like the fridges were going crazy.
With the panel on it, with the screen on it. Why do you need that? You're going to probably have a phone in your pocket. What are you going
to stand? Like, why do you need like a high definition TV on your fridge? Is that the most comfortable area to watch your media?
Yeah.
So maybe they're watching you. Maybe they're getting some mere mortals.
Because they don't have a phone. I don't know. It's so dumb. I think one of the silliest things that I've seen in home remodeling trends lately, and this isn't smart technology, is that this pot filler that goes on your stove that fills up the water. Yeah. You still have to, all that does is solve you still have to bring the pot to it. It fills it up with water, and then you still have to dump the water. So you got to pick it up and you got to take it to the sink. Well, if you're already at the sink with a full pot of water. And
with all those, especially plumbing, like fixtures, like mixing valves for showers and tubs and kitchen faucets, all that, I only do Delta. So there's all these different brands, and Delta and Moen, even Kohler, are all great. But then I was helping a girl that's flipping a house here in town, and she picked some valve off of Amazon because she wanted like the rainfall for the shower and then another head. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're installing, you're permanently installing a mixing valve and the plumbing. And if you ever need some internals, so if it ever like won't turn off and it keeps leaking, or you're having any issues, good luck. You are never going to get a replacement part. But on the other end, for Delta's been making like those, they're called R10000 is the mixing valve. You can get a cartridge valve for that at any home improvement store, and it's super easy to swap out. So I just do caution, like probably stick to the main brands on this stuff.
So I saw you had a video on, you're going to be installing your own solar panels.
Yeah, I got one right here.
That's right behind you.
360 watt solar panel on a 12.
Well, that seems like a high end DIY job right there. It's for the high functioning DIYer.
Yeah, but there's some very high functioning, and don't even talk about like the whole off-grid crew and the that's a whole nother set, and they're super, and they do basically everything
and
themselves.
That combines technology with kind of traditional building techniques too.
I'm scratching my own itch a bit here, which is always nice when you can do that on the channel. My bread and butter audience isn't necessarily like all about solar, so I'm not trying to like blast a ton of solar on my channel, but I am integrating it in. So I'm going to make, over like a concrete patio, I'm going to make basically a 12 foot by 20 foot. I called it a solar pergola. It's a little bit more of a lean-to structure. So I got to get the building permit and build that structure. And then I have to get the electrical permit and then install all those different panels and figure out how to get that back to my electrical panel. And on outside of frame here, I have, the inverter. So I have a solar edge inverter that will take the DC power and flip it over to AC. That should be a fun one. That one's coming up in a couple months. And then I'm going to do also a professional installed solar project as well. So I'm going to do the DIY side, going to do the professional side, because solar is great. In Illinois, where I'm at, we have the federal tax credits, but we also have state incentives.
Oh, you still have the state one.
So it can, and we have net metering and everything. So you can get paid back in like 6 or 7 years for your investment. But there's a lot of information and a ton of scams out there too.
Oh man, it's so bad. It is bad. Yeah.
So because of all the money out there, it's just brought everyone out of the woodwork, And then they go into poor Susie's house, and they're talking about kilowatts and kilowatt hours and return on investments and inflation rates. Oh, we applied the standard 6% inflation rate for your kilowatt hours over time. And, they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And at the end, they're like, oh, and we have basically a zero cost option here for you.
That's the bullshit one.
Well, but that's, so most people are like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So now what happens is you get like a 20-year lien on your property.
Oh man.
So if you ever want to sell your home, which
because you don't own those panels.
98% of people are going to sell their home within 20 years. So now you have this complexity of like, is the next homeowner going to take on this crazy contract? There was one video I saw out there, which a homeowner was going through this experience, and it was like a complete nightmare. Like they did this, said they were going to get the tax credit. Well, they didn't pay much income tax at all, so they couldn't get the tax credit. Right. And their power bill actually went up.
Oh man!
So after they had the solar panels installed, the power bill went up in addition to paying the loan for the panels. And then they didn't get the tax credit, so the loan didn't go down as much as it should. So their loan payment was actually going to go up. It was like straight up nightmare scenario. So be careful. So even a professional, right? In that case, you're like, oh, bring in the professionals. They're professionals. Well, no, you got to educate yourself on this stuff and have at least some knowledge. So those are the videos I'm doing on the channel now. So like I just published.
That'd be interesting to see those. Yeah.
I just published the 4 different ways to pay for panels. And we talked about some of this yesterday. So
we got our panels, our solar probably 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And even then, because California doesn't have the tax credit any longer. I think they eliminated that maybe last year or something, but there's still the federal one. But we thought it just seemed like the right thing to do. And wow, there's a lot of just sleazy. They feel like used car salesmen or something. The worst for us, frankly, was Costco. We had
really?
Sunrun.
Oh, Sunrun's known for their power purchasing agreements or PPAs.
So that's who they're
notorious.
They contract with, apparently. They came out to the house and it was like, I swear the guy was trying to sell us a used car or something. It was so...
Timeshare?
I don't even remember. I was like,
Were you guys in like a timeshare meeting in your own house?
Oh, yeah, it kind of felt like that. Like, okay, you can go now. Yeah. I think we get it. But
I got to take a shower. This feels wrong.
So we went through like 3 different companies, and we finally found one we were really happy with, and they did the job. But that Sunrun guy, he kept calling, and finally, and my wife was kind of dealing with this, and then finally she said, okay, we decided to go with somebody else, and she said it was like breaking up with a boyfriend or something, because he was like, oh, come on. He was practically crying.
You're going to do this over the phone?
Yeah,
He's like, you're going to do this over the phone? You texted me?
Oh, it was horrible. But these guys that did it, they did a great job. And I think we have like 20 panels. It powers the whole house, although now we probably need more. And eventually, if I get an electric car.
So that's what I'm trying to plan. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to plan on with the electric car. And I was thinking about switching over to electric heat pump for heat. We need a lot of heat in this area. Probably a little early on that, but that cranks up like my demand if I wanted to completely offset that. So
yeah. Do you recommend getting the batteries or not?
Not yet.
We thought about the Tesla batteries, and I had it all set up to do it because this is when we were going through these public safety power shutdowns here in California because of the wildfires and stuff. And I thought, damn it, I don't want to be without power for 3 days. And I can be that guy on the block that has everything powered up and everybody else is without power.
Everybody's coming over.
Yeah,
like,
but this was
the AC on.
Yeah, I've got like Christmas lights up or whatever. But
it's too cold in here. Yeah, this AC is really cranking.
Everybody's clawing at the doors, trying to get in. Yeah. But I canceled it. I was like, I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. And at the time, it would have cost like $20,000 or something to have this. Yep. I'm sure it's cheaper now. But I thought, I'll just get a generator. If, worst comes to worst, I just plug that in for a little bit and get this.
Yeah, most places know, right? So most, like Illinois, we're at 12 cents per kilowatt hour. It's flat. There's no like peak times of the day or anything. There's some, I guess, justification in markets where you have different rates throughout the day. So maybe during the day, you can actually load up on your power, and then you can, during the day, maybe there's a time period where it's 25 cents per kilowatt hour during the midday. Then you could go off battery. So then you flip over to battery. So you like harvested the sun, you flip over to battery, so you avoid the higher energy times, right? So then you can bring down. So there's some justification there, but batteries are kind of on that curve. Remember like flat screens TVs when they first came out? It was like $15,000 for a 40-inch
plasma.
So the plasmas. So we're a little bit past that right now, but we will definitely come down in terms of cost here within the next 3 to 5 years. We got to get over the hump of like all cars switching to electric, right? That's going to be kind of a big demand on batteries.
Well, I think what we're doing here in California is that 2 things. One, I'm pretty sure all new home construction has to have solar on it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And also the sale of gas-powered cars is eliminated. So like in 10 years, it's going to be only electric.
You guys are always leading the way out there. You guys are just pretty aggressive, The rest of us are going to follow along eventually. Yeah,
usually I don't hear that with optimism from people in other states. There's like, damn, California. now we got to do it.
I'm a believer in electric. I'm like, it's so funny. Like, there's no way I'm the target customer. I have like a 1-ton Ford pickup truck, which is like the worst gas guzzler ever. Literally, the motor is called Godzilla. Like, it's just this insane, gas guzzler. But I'm like first in line for the Tesla Cybertruck.
Yeah.
So, like I'm fully switching over. In my mind, you don't even have to force anybody. Like these things, we're going to start transitioning extremely quickly.
Yeah. I always wonder what that transition, how long the transition is going to take, because there's going to be a period of time where you're going to see both cars for, combustion engines and electric for a long time. It's kind of like when cars first came out and you would still see horses and carriages on the road alongside of cars. There was this transition period. But
the transition's really fast. If you look back to that, the transition's like wickedly fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they had the picture of like New York City, with all horses in one car.
Right.
And then New York City, and it was only like a few years. Yeah. And then New York City, where it completely flipped. It was all cars and one horse, and it was only a few years. So, Yeah, it's happening fast. You want to talk about comments, talk about electric cars and stuff on your channel. That starts getting, that really riles people up, man. This will never happen. This is never going to happen. It's like, whoa. Like, it really touches a nerve with people.
Last episode of this podcast, I had Zach from...
Oh, yeah. Jerry Riggs, everything.
Yeah, he was talking about, he made a electric Hummer himself, and the reason why he did that, I saw
a few of those episodes.
The reason why he did that was to kind of make the point to people who were probably least likely to go electric that yes, you could still have this, big manly
super
truck
off-roading. That was cool. No, I think it's one of those things where I never get too set either direction. I'm usually open and kind of looking at different things, and like I know some people are dead set, but if it's easier to get around, it's more cost effective, the features make your life easier, maybe autonomy, whatever that is, you're gonna fight that. You want to drive that 15-hour road trip? I'd rather not, so I'll let the car drive me. So I think those type of things, kind of the killer features, are gonna it just makes it a no-brainer.
So do you make a big distinction between the DIY projects on your channel and the repair projects? I mean, obviously the name of the channel is Everyday Home Repairs, but are you interested in just like tiling a room and adding new hardwood floors and these kind of things as much?
Yeah, like I've done a full DIY bathroom remodel, like taking out the old fiberglass, putting it in, new flooring, vanity, kind of everything, start to finish. So I do not differentiate. The thing that I'm trying to do is just, new homeowner, beginner to intermediate DIYer. That's my core. And I'm trying not to drift. So, when I do a video, I'm only like 1 or 2 steps ahead of maybe the audience that's learning from it, right? So I'm building what tools I have, the knowledge I have, the projects I'm doing. I'm trying not to drift too much on that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have all the latest tools and like just make it very unapproachable by most homeowners. So I'm trying to keep myself grounded in who is the target audience. And we'll do those larger renovation projects. I think those are awesome. I love, a young couple gets a 1970s house and starts updating it by watching YouTube videos. Like I love that, everything about that. And I think you can build a ton of equity in your home that way. I think that's super smart.
Just sweat equity. Just put in the time and do it.
Right.
Most of this stuff you could
do.
So
I have a shirt that says sweat. It actually says sweat equity on it. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
I think that you have to be careful not to let your projects, not yours, but people who are trying this stuff, not to let them end up looking like DIY projects. Because I've seen a number of that too. You go to tile a bathroom floor and it's kind of wonky.
Yeah. Or painting, those lines aren't super crisp.
That's the reveal, those crisp lines on painting, isn't it?
Yeah. You got to get that brushwork, get the more expensive brushes.
Before we go, let me do a couple rapid fire questions I was thinking about, okay?
Yep.
Why do they have water heaters go up so high? Because they always have a warning on there, scalding warning. Why don't they just have it where you can only go up certain... Who wants like boiling hot water coming out of that thing?
To each their own, right? I think it gives you a little bit more hot water. So if you think about it, if it's boiling hot and you can mix in a little bit more cold, maybe you can take a longer shower or more baths because you're not using as much of the hot water to get what you want.
Oh.
So,
well, there you go.
Right. So but it's not energy efficient, right? Because then you're going to be scorching this stuff all the time. But there's scald protection on your mixing valves at your shower.
Yeah.
But be careful at your sink. That's not usually there. So sometimes those faucets are scorching hot.
Okay, age-old question. Which way should the American-style grounded outlet go?
Ground down.
Ground down. Thank you. So it should look like a face, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a hot debate. 80% of people think ground down.
Yeah,
so
it looks right.
That was a poll. That was a video. That was...
I saw you had a short on it.
Yeah, that was... Yeah. That was a hot debate. And then do you guys have Harbor Freight out there, right? Yeah. Talk about Harbor Freight, man. Old Harbor Freight gets people going both like...
Oh, you get the tool crowd, yeah.
I've only done one Harbor Freight video, and it had 5x more comments than like my average video. Like everybody wants to talk about Harbor Freight, and it is not one way. Everybody wants to either love it or hate it. Like it's very polarizing.
Well, see, this is true with Harbor Freight because of the tools, and on the opposite end, Festool, which has like really high end tools.
Oh,
you talk about either one of those.
I haven't made that jump,
and
but
you're going to get
those
people are fighting.
I don't think I can. My channel, I think that's a no-go zone. Those are pretty fancy.
What can you do about knocking pipes? You turn on the faucet and ging, 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 ging. You hear that sound.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the houses I have don't really have those. I think you can get those hammer, I don't know if they're called arresters or whatever they are, that has basically, it's kind of like it has capacity to take some of that violent stopping and starting of the water away, so you might not have as much movement going through the pipes. But that's not something that's too common in our areas, and that's kind of because a lot of the plumbing switching over to PEX over the last decade to 15 years.
Oh, I see. Yeah, we've got some knocking. It's a little bit annoying. I guess you would have to crawl into the crawl space, right, and try to just like clamp it down or whatever.
I think if it's a shower valve, I think they actually go off the top as the cold and hot go into that mixing part. So you'd actually have to like tear into it. Yeah. And that's why there's some code, there's plumbing code in certain areas where you have to have that on your washer hookups, and then also on the shower.
And let's see, last one I have is when should you get a new roof?
When a hailstorm rolls through.
Well, it's like our roof is like 20 years old now, and I remember at the time them saying, well, it's good for 20 years or something, but I look at it and it looks fine to me.
I mean, if I was living there, so if I'm living there, I'm paying attention, I don't think there's like a huge opportunity where there's going to be water damage where I'm not going to notice anything. I mean, I let it ride, even with granular loss, in your gutters, you have a bunch of granules and right. And you start to see the fibers coming up through the asphalt shingles themselves. Okay, you are getting towards the end, but to be honest, the roofs usually aren't catastrophic failures, right? So you might start to get one leak, and then that's like, okay.
If it's leaking into your kitchen, you probably waited a little long though, right?
Yeah, if you get one wet spot and now you got to do a little drywall repair. I mean, for me, that's not the end of the world. And then that would probably be triggering. Okay, let's go ahead and get this baby swapped out.
Give me some final closing words of wisdom for somebody who just bought their first house.
Yeah, get ready, because there's a lot. Usually you oversimplify, home ownership. It doesn't have to be intimidating, but you should know the basics, right? Like how to shut down power. Where is your main water shut off if you need to shut that down? Those are huge.
You really got to know that. Where's that water shut off?
Yeah. Well, people don't. Sometimes it's in a crawl space. Sometimes it's completely buried. But do it and test it. Actually test it. Shut it off. Run your water. Make sure it's functioning. If you have a central air unit, you most likely have a filter. Don't forget that you have one of those.
Oh, the furnace filters.
Many people that go multiple years and then it gets sucked into the blower fan because it got so gummed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
set a reminder on your calendar. I have my Google Calendar reminds me every 3 months.
You can get subscriptions too. You can get like Amazon, and then Amazon will deliver the furnace filter every 6 months or whatever. Yeah. So usually I say quarterly. You swap those out, and they don't have to be too expensive. So just stay on top of it and be a little confident in your skills. Most people can figure out quite a bit, especially now. I mean, with the videos out there, a ton of great creators. I think that's just going to continue to increase. So whatever brand or model, refrigerator or furnace or flooring type or project you have, now, I mean, there is usually a targeted video with pretty solid content that's going to help you through that. So take it on, and then you just get the confidence, and you're going to do more DIY in the future.
Well, Scott, your content is about as solid as it gets in the DIY space. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.